So an example of that would be, so I'm thinking, I'm never going to get better. I would look at that and I would try to flip it or reframe it. And I would think, right, let's test the reality of that. How do you know you're not going to get better? What's your evidence? What do you know? There isn't actually any evidence that you're not going to get better. That is a future thing. What can I do right now in this moment that may help me get better?
If you're living with ME/CFS, long COVID, fibromyalgia, POTS, and your mind keeps scaring your body, this conversation is for you. Felicity shares the specific mind body tools that helped her get her life back, from changing her thinking to breathing practices to routines, humour, and creativity. This was a really fun interview. Watch through to the end as Felicity gives really practical examples that you can start using gently in your day. So, hi everybody. I did an interview with Felicity recently where she talked about the things in general that helped her recover from ME/CFS, and we thought it'd be useful to do a follow up interview where Felicity talks specifically about the mind body approaches that helped her. So, hi Felicity.
Hi, Simon. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, and just remind us where you are in the world.
I'm in New Zealand. I'm about 20 minutes north of Auckland City, which is the biggest city in New Zealand.
Right, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, where do you want to start, Felicity?
I think a really good place to start would be a little bit about my history. Not much, but just the fact that I worked in palliative care and the impact that had on me in actually naturally developing mind body approaches without even knowing it. And this is hindsight stuff because when I first became sick, there just wasn't a lot of talk out there about mind body stuff. So I didn't know anything about it. And so I was just sort of trying to find my way with the knowledge that I had. And the knowledge that I had was that people that were terminally ill, the patients that I'd looked after, the ones that had a mindset that was hopeful, that was focused on quality of life rather than being in the sick role and being in that victim role were the ones that actually tended to live longer and have a better quality of life in general. So I kind of knew organically that the way you think can really affect your trajectory. So, having worked in it for 15 years, um, I, yeah, I think I just naturally knew holistically that it was really important to have a thinking process that supported love more than fear. And I think I'm so grateful that I'd had that experience because it really, really helped me out because I was blind. I had no idea what I was doing, really. But one patient that really stood out to me was a lady. She was a lady in her early 50s and she had metastatic breast cancer. And she was sent home to die. And I was her nurse a district nurse looking after her. And she was given, I think, 3 weeks to live, and she lived for 18 months longer. And her mindset was just amazing. And here's an example. She didn't like going to see the oncologist. She called him the Grim Reaper because she would go there and he would say things to her like, oh, your cancer's spread, and things aren't looking good. And it was always bad news based in fear. So she would flip it. And I remember one time she was told that her pelvis looked like it was moth eaten. I mean, how frightening is that? And I remember her saying to me, I just said to him, I just need to get some mothballs in. Like she just completely flipped it, made it funny, something that's, not funny at all, but
Yeah,
that's what she would do. And so
yeah.
she'd be reinforcing in her brain high vibrational kind of like pathways that were supporting her rather than going down the path of spiraling down this vortex of poor me. Oh my gosh, my pelvis is, falling apart, she chose not to do that. And so I tried really, really hard to be like that in my recovery because I knew it worked. It extended their lives. So that was where I came from before I got sick. So I was lucky. I had a foundational kind of knowledge of what was good for you in regards mind stuff and how it actually affected your body.
Yeah, that's
Um,
amazing. And I just wanted to ask you, sort of how did that, how did you apply that? Can you say a little bit about that?
yeah, well, how I applied it, and this was the next thing that I did. When I first had to stop working because I was really unwell with ME/CFS, I decided that I was going to do a little bit of study. I had to do it really slowly and gradually because I was quite unwell, but I chose to do a mindfulness practitioner's course online. And the one strategy that I took from that course that I think bode me really, really well in regards mind body approach was the non judgmental observer of my own thoughts and behaviors. And so this is a strategy where you sort of look at yourself as an observer with self-compassion. So you're not critiquing yourself. And you ask yourself, are the thoughts you're having, are they going to support your health? Are they healthy? You know, or are you in stress mode and you're in a stress loop of worrying about finances, whether you're going to ever get better, whether, all of the things that we all think about when we're unwell. And I did it. Don't I certainly did it. I had my times when I did it a lot, specifically early on when I was first sick. And then that, because you're being a non-judgmental observer of your thoughts, you can stop them. You can actually think, well, actually, that's not so good. And then distract yourself and do something else to break that stress loop of thinking, that limbic system stress loop, which is the when you ruminate over and over again and you reinforce the neural pathways in your brain. So I found that incredibly helpful. So I would catch myself, and I wouldn't do it all the time. There were times when I just couldn't do it because I was so overwhelmed and feeling so, so sick. But if I would sort of think, well, look, things aren't feeling good. I'm feeling really overwhelmed. And then I'd think, okay, use that non-judgmental observer strategy and just really examine what's going on. And I guess that sort of helped the discipline of my mind to stop the reinforcing the fear pathways that I had that were well entrenched in my brain. So, yeah, I learnt that through the mindfulness practitioner's course that I did
Yeah, so
right
so
at the
let
beginning when I got sick.
let's look at a practical example of that. And I can absolutely relate to what you're saying because I at one point was doing the same thing. I was scaring myself silly, telling myself I'm going to end up in hospital. And I can
Yeah,
remember the day where I said, actually, I've said that to myself many times. I don't need to say it to myself anymore because all it's doing is putting my system in a big state of fight and flight. And that's making my symptoms worse. And so I
yeah.
decided to stop saying that, catching myself, and saying, actually, my body's got incredible healing power. But how would you, for instance, let's say, a phrase that we hear a lot from our clients is that I'm worried that I'm never going to get better. So, how would you apply that to that
Okay.
thought? Give us your take on that.
Okay. So what I would do is if I could caught myself thinking like that. So this was something that I had to develop a habit first. Like I would actually do this when I would wake up in the morning. I would think, okay, what's my thought processes like? And then I'd check in later in the day. It wasn't something that happened automatically. I had to build a habit of doing it. And then, of course, now it's embodied. Like I just automatically do this now in my life. I try to catch myself out. So, an example of that would be so I'm thinking, I'm never going to get better. I would look at that and I would try to flip it or reframe it. And I would think, right, let's test the reality of that. How do you know you're not going to get better? What's your evidence? What do you know? You know, there isn't actually any evidence that you're not going to get better. That is a future thing. What can I do right now in this moment that may help me get better? So you're distracting yourself and you're actually then doing something like you might then just do a breathing exercise, which was generally the thing that I would do. I'd just slow my breathing down, which is, of course, a really good body to brain signaling, safety signaling, to calm myself. Because, of course, when you have those thoughts, then you're in that, you start to feel quite panicky, can't you? You can feel quite overwhelmed. So it sounds easy. It's not. It's just a strategy that if you're aware of it, you can deploy it, but you have to deploy it.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's and I think from what you're saying, what's interesting to me is we imagine the future, and this imagine a future where we're not well, and
yeah,
that is affecting our physiology in this moment,
it is. And
and
we
that
don't know the future. The only
yeah,
reality we have is right now in the moment.
yeah,
So use that moment in a way that is going to set you on the right trajectory to hopefully getting better instead of mulling and ruminating upon the worst case scenarios. I was an expert at that. I
yeah,
mean, I I used to do that all the time before I got sick.
yeah,
And I'm sure it contributed to me becoming unwell.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
I just do think that's really interesting because if we keep scaring ourselves silly in this moment, that is impacting our future. And one of the things I
it
talk
is.
about, yeah, I talk about this concept that there's a point in the future where you're feeling better or even recovered, and that point in the future just moves a little bit further away every time you scare
Yes.
yourself. And every time you just, like you say, catch yourself, take a breath and say, well, actually, I haven't got a crystal ball. I can't predict the future, but I can influence the future by what I do right now. Then that point in the future
Absolutely.
is moving a little bit closer.
Closer.
And
Yes.
and you said something interesting, which is um, it got easier. It
It
became,
did.
now
Yes.
it's something you're good at. Okay, so it was challenging and to do initially, but you got better at it.
Yes, because like with any of these practices, um, it's like you've got to build the habit, and habit building starts with you consistently doing something. And that's probably the most challenging part of it is getting over that line of consistently doing something and building. And that's why routines are really good in recovery. Yeah. So yeah, that was a strategy that I used a lot and I still use to this day.
Yeah.
And um yeah, the
And can I just
there
say,
was yeah.
you've just hinted at another piece, which is having routines.
Mm,
Because
huge.
we both know that successful people have routines.
Yes.
I'm
And the brain likes routines.
yeah,
It sends safety to your brain. When
yeah,
you have routines, the thing with routines though is you've got to enjoy them. So you've got to build routines with things that you enjoy. Otherwise, it's going to be that much harder to make them habits because it's going to feel like work instead of play, you know? So I was actually pretty good at building a routine full of things that I loved. And I didn't even mindfully do this. It was just, I think I was just so, I just thought I just need to do things that I love because this is horrible. This just feels really horrible. And so I would do things like in the morning, sit outside without even knowing how good the light is going through your eyes and all of that, and feed the wild birds. And that would keep me in the moment. They would make me laugh. They were very cute because they were like lorikeets and cockatoos and, Australian birds. And that would, again, it's wiring my brain because I'm in a happy place, or the best of place that I could be. I mean, I was still feeling brain foggy and I had all the symptoms and everything. However, it was distracting me from the symptoms. And I would often find, of course, that the symptoms weren't as bad when I was doing these things in my routine that I loved. So I think that's a key. If your symptoms, because with neuroplastic pain, we all know that if you distract yourself with something you love, quite often the symptoms aren't as bad. And that's a good key that what you're doing could actually be brain retraining in some form.
Yeah.
You're sending chemical messages up and down to your brain, and it's helping that wiring.
Yeah.
So I used to go and sit outside in the morning, feed the birds, eat my breakfast out there. I was lucky I was in Australia, Queensland. It was beautiful and warm. So it wasn't like, London in the middle of winter where you can't go outside. So that was on my side as well. Music was the other big, huge mind body thing for me as well. Whenever I listened to music, which I did, I got into the routine of I would wake up, I would take some good breaths, I would check into my thought processes, not every day, but I tried to do it every day. And then I would get up, make myself get up when I was well enough. So this was at times when I was well enough to do this. And I'd put my music on straight away. And I'd actually clean my teeth, brush my hair, and have my music going. And I really found that dulled my symptoms. They weren't as bad. If I went to do those things, wash my face or whatever, and I didn't have the music playing, I would feel way worse. So it put me, the lyrics of the words, it was uplifting music, put me in a state of a more high vibrational energy state of feeling, I wouldn't say happy because I was still sick, but I really believe it helped rewire my brain, the lyrics.
Amazing. And off the
Yeah.
top of your head, any tracks come to mind? And if people are
Put me on the spot.
yeah, people watching, feel free
A
to
Lovely
add.
Day by Bill Withers.
Yeah, love it. Lovely.
Yeah, just stuff like that, that had it's a lovely day, and it goes on and
Yeah.
on and on, and you're
Yeah,
wiring
yeah.
it into your brain that it is going
Yeah.
to be a lovely day.
You've
Yeah,
inspired me to think of compiling a kind of uplifting music playlist for people with ME/CFS.
absolutely.
So,
And
maybe have a think if there's any other tracks that you'd add to that. And again, if people are watching the interview, add your suggestions. I will compile a Spotify playlist that people can
okay,
access. Because
yeah,
you've
there's
just
some
inspired
beautiful.
me.
Okay, and the other music is I've got quite a bit of music that's quite calming, and so of course that's really good too. I mean, um, yeah, and I still listen to a lot of calming music.
Yeah,
I know that it grounds me and
yeah,
it keeps me in that more regulated state. So it was music that I'd get up to every morning. And the other thing was once I got to a stage where I could do the stuff, because I did have a time when I was pretty sick and I was in bed, like early on. But when I got to a stage where I could move a bit more, I would dance a little bit to the music. And that was sending body to brain messaging, so somatic messaging to my brain that all is well because I'm moving. Because movement is a signal to the brain that you're safe. As long as it's not like running from a saber-toothed tiger and you've got adrenaline, but moving in a way that makes you feel happy. which dancing does, because I've done dancing my whole life. So that was like going back to what brought me joy when I was a child. I started reintroducing into my recovery. So music and dance was big, and breathing was always something that I used. I used to use alternate nostril breathing a lot. A lot. That was my go-to breathing exercise, because the beauty of alternate nostril breathing is it connects the two hemispheres of your brain, but it also takes a bit of concentration because you've got to block off your nostril and do all of that. And so that brings you into the moment as well, because you've got to concentrate. So it's kind of like switching off any monkey mind stuff as you're doing that. And I really found alternate nostril breathing really helped my brain fog. The brain fog I had got great relief from that. So
Amazing.
that was another
So
thing.
do you want to do a quick demo of that we can all
Oh,
join
yeah, I
in?
haven't done it for a while, but I've
Yeah.
probably used the wrong fingers. But I know that you start with your left nostril.
Yeah.
So you
All
block
right.
off and you breathe in.
So you block off your right nostril.
Not right nostril, that's right.
Yeah.
So you breathe in through your left nostril and then you block off your right and breathe out through your left. No, through your right. Sorry. Go to YouTube. There's some really good breathe out through your right. And then you breathe in again. And then you block it off and breathe out. Breathe in, block it off, breathe out, and breathe in. And you always finish with breathing out your left nostril. And if you do that for 5 minutes, there is a finger way, a proper finger way of doing it. I can't remember, but it is on YouTube and you can find demonstrations, really good demonstrations on there.
Yeah, I learned that as part of a yoga practice, and when
Yeah,
I
it is a
learned it,
yoga
I
breathing.
you just used your thumb and finger, but
That's it. Yeah.
if it might be, there might be different versions and stuff, but yeah, so
Yeah.
that's something to practice. Let us know in the chat how you found doing that very short little exercise. And I remember another client mentioning that, as I say, something I learned when I learned yoga. But you've reminded me, I have got out of the habit of doing it, but it is a really nice practice. So yeah, let us know in the chat how you find practicing that. Okay, so what
Practicing.
else, Felicity?
The other thing that was my go-to, and I used to do these at least when I was really in the full-on recovery mode in my routines, I would do yoga nidras, guided yoga nidras on YouTube. And within the yoga nidras, you say a phrase which is something positive, like something that you want in your life. So you might say something like, I have abundance of joy and love in my life, and that's your focus as you're being guided in the yoga nidra, which is a meditation. Actually, it's not yoga. Some people think it's doing stretching and stuff like that. It's not. You just lie in a comfortable position and you listen to um, the guidance of the yoga nidra YouTube video. And they were amazing for me. You can get different length of yoga nidra. So you can get 15-minute ones, you can get 30-minute ones, you can get hour ones. So you just pick what you want at the time. And I used to do those mid-morning. So when I got to the stage, when you get up and you've done a little bit and you're starting to feel it, like your symptoms are starting to they're starting to rev up a little bit, I would go and relax at about 10 o'clock in the morning and do a yoga nidra for about 45 minutes. And that would perk me up. It would actually get rid of the level of symptom decline I'd had, and I would be able to continue on. So I would do that at about 10 in the morning, and then I might do another one just after lunchtime, and then I would do another one in the evening as part of my evening routine. As I got better and I got to the stage where I was actually able to go out and do things that I wanted to do every now and again, I would always do a yoga nidra before I went. And then I would do one when I came home. And yeah, so they were big, big part of my recovery, and I still use them to this day. I don't do them every day because I'm a little bit too busy and I've got other things that I do. But if I'm ever feeling really tired and I just need a little bit more energy or to calm down a little bit, that's my go-to. So I've got links. I can share some links with you for the ones that I liked on YouTube. They're
Great.
free.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. We'll put the links below
Yeah.
this video.
And of course, that's wiring your brain as well because you're thinking of that wonderful positive phrase that you've chosen and you're focusing on it and you're visualizing it. So it's powerful stuff, really. What else did I do? Um, I, I looked for a lot of humor. Humor's a great rewirer of your brain. Because you can't be scared and laughing at, or you suppose you could be a little bit scared and laughing, but generally it switches off the fear response. So I had a recovery buddy who I met when I joined the recovery program that I did, CFS Health. And he was a very witty Scottish man. Well, he still is a very witty Scottish man. He's still with us. And we would message every day, every morning. We would message. It would be his nighttime. He had terrible sleep patterns, so it wouldn't matter that he was in Scotland and I was in New Zealand. And he'd make me laugh every day, and I'd make him laugh. So humour and laughter was part of my recovery. And I guess I made that happen because I made friends with him because I knew he was funny. And to this day, he makes me laugh a lot. So, yeah, I think humor's a very, very useful um, tool to distract you and keep you in the moment.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, love that. Love that. And as you were
yeah,
talking about humor, um, I was thinking there. I can't remember his name. There was an editor in New York. The name will come to me. And he had, I think he had cancer, and he cured his cancer by taking high levels of vitamin C and
yeah.
watching lots of comedy. Now, obviously, that's anecdotal rather than scientific, but it's an interesting story. As I say,
Oh, wow.
Norman Cousins is his name.
Norman Cousins. Well, I
Yeah.
know of someone out there, and I'm sure he won't mind me sharing this. His son, when he was a little boy, got cancer, and their approach with their son was to add humour to his tumour. And he recovered from a very aggressive type of cancer. And he's just actually qualified as a paramedic. And they didn't give him hardly any hope at all when he
Wow.
was a child. So it
Wow.
was humour to the tumour. I quite like that. I
Wow.
thought that was
Yeah.
quite,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So the
that's
power
amazing.
of humour.
Yeah.
And I used to watch Little Britain. That was the favourite. You'll know that program.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Come Fly With Me. All those guys, what's his name? Can't think of the name of the actor in that. David. Can't think of it. Anyway, that sort of humour,
Yeah.
English
Yeah. Yeah.
humour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the other thing that I used to do, which I still do, and it's like my passion, and now it's a little bit of a job as well for me, is photography. It was something that I didn't do a lot of before I got sick. I didn't know that I had a passion for it. But I think sitting out in nature and actually being forced to not do and to be racing around and having such a busy life, I never discovered that it was a passion of mine until I got sick and I was forced to sit and watch the birds. And I sort of thought, oh, that was so funny. I'll have to take a photo of that. And it just sort of happened, it grew from there. And now, like I provide, I'm a contributor for Getty Images online with my photography and stuff, and it's part of my business. And I get up every morning and I take photos of the sunrise and nature photos and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, that was just so instrumental in keeping me in the moment and stopping me from thinking all the fear thoughts that I used to think.
Yeah.
I just picked my
That's
camera up and it slowed me down as well.
Yeah.
It really made me use my senses and be present, because I'd be looking at the colors and the form and the texture. And yeah, so that's where I think getting in touch with your creativity is so healing, like painting, anything that you enjoy. It's huge. It's huge in recovery.
Wow, I love that. I love the fact that that's, you know, number one, that you've talked about passion, because I think passion's really important. Number two,
Yeah.
that, you know, your particular passion is photography, and that you've contributed to the Getty Images Bank is incredible. So
Yeah, I
that's,
would never have thought in 1,000 years that that would be something that I would be doing, but that was a gift I got from
yeah,
being so unwell. And the other thing that it did for me too was when I first started walking, because, we're kind of used to doing things fast. And so it would slow me down because I would think, oh, I really like the look of that. I'm going to take a photo of that. And I would stop, take a photo, and then just walk slowly. So it kind of slowed me down, which was good, because I was a runner before I got sick. I used to get up and go running every morning fast, everything was fast. So um, I didn't want to walk. I remember I remember a doctor, it might have been a psychologist, saying to me, well, why don't you just walk instead of run? Because I was actually really, really grieving the fact that I couldn't run anymore when I was sick. In fact, I pushed myself to run for quite a bit in the beginning, and it caused me to have a massive crash. But I didn't want to walk because that's boring. But once I developed the love of photography, it wasn't boring anymore for me. So photography was very, very healing for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And that's, again, you've just touched on something that's important. You said, you know, you were pushing yourself to run. Can you say a bit more about that? What was going on there, do you think?
Uh, it was the overachiever in me. It was um, I did enjoy it because I listened to music when I ran. And so it was like the rhythm, and I'd be running to the rhythm. So part of that was good. But really, I was sick. What was I doing running? I just think that I had lost so much. I'd lost the ability to work. I'd lost the ability to socialize because I had so much brain fog that I was so stubborn. I wasn't going to lose that. Yeah, it was stubbornness. I just thought no, because at the time I could do it. I didn't know I had ME/CFS at that time. You've got to remember too. So I didn't understand the whole PEM thing. At the time when I ran, I felt okay. But of course, it would be a day later and I would be tired again. And I didn't make the connection for a long, long time because I didn't actually know what was wrong with me for the first 2 years. So that was in the first 2 years that I tried to push through and run.
Right,
Yeah, once I knew that I had ME/CFS, I didn't run anymore. I slowed down.
right. And
Yeah.
that's, you know, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, you know, that sense of grieving what we've lost, the life we've lost. And I know,
Yeah.
you know, talked to many people who realize that because of that grief, they were doing stuff, pushing through. And I, you know, speak to many people who recognize, wow, I really dug myself into a hole because I just kept pushing.
Yeah, because you do. You've got that grief, and it's hard to think that you're going to lose something else, yet another thing.
Yeah,
Um, However, it doesn't have to be forever.
yeah,
And I think reframing it in a way that this is just a time, and that, this is going to help you get back to a place where one day you may very well get back to doing those things that you love. And that's how it was for me. I couldn't dance, and I loved dancing. The only thing I could do was lie in a hammock and swing to music. So I used to do that when I was really sick. I'd lie outside and just swing in the hammock. And yeah, but now I can go back to dance classes and I'm full on, I can do it all. So I did get back. But way back then, all I could do was swing in a hammock, and that had to be enough. And I had to accept that at that time. Yeah, not
Wow.
easy.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
love the fact that you found a creative way of adapting to your situation. So swinging in the hammock is still,
Yes.
you know, kind of therapeutic.
Soothing.
Yeah,
It's like being
yeah,
rocked
yeah.
to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that I did was kind of just like intuitive. Like I didn't think to myself, oh, well, I'm soothing myself by swinging in the hammock. It just felt good. It just felt right at the time. Um, it wasn't like following a rigid program of you've got to do this and you've got to do that. I was just really building into my life the things that I really enjoyed. And because of that, this is how my life is now. I embody it. This is my life. I still do all these things. I don't do all of them. Like I don't do a yoga nidra every morning, and I still listen to music when I get up first thing in the morning. Um, I still get up and do stretching, which is good messaging to the nervous system and everything that you're safe, like cross body stretches and yoga positions. I do that for probably 5 times a week for about 10 minutes in the morning. And then I go down the beach. I take photos every morning. I can count on one hand. The weather has to be really, really bad for me not to go down there. I'm very lucky that I live only, I can walk to the beach from here and take my dogs down there, take photos. I don't run. I watch people on the beach and they're like running, and there's this beautiful sunrise and they're oblivious to it. They can't even see it.
So you've covered a lot, Felicity. Is there anything else you want to tell us about?
Yeah, I think an important thing that I did for several months, probably for about 8 months, when I was seriously getting into focusing on my recovery, was it was like a diary. And in this diary, I had to list 3 things that I was grateful for every day. And it was within that as well, I wrote more about that. So I wrote a lot about gratitude, and that's a great neural rewirer. Every time that you think about what you're grateful for, you write it, so you reinforce it. You are creating healthy pathways that will hopefully override the fear pathways that are there. So, yes, I did that for several months. And I think that played a big part because within this whole process, it's really interesting. I don't know if it was like this for you, Simon, but it's like I know that I used to ruminate and I used to have a lot of fear based thinking, particularly, yeah, I just had a lot of fear based thinking. And then it just kind of just slowly changed and it was insidious. And I didn't even really realize that my thinking was shifting. It wasn't like one day I had fear based thinking and the next day I didn't do it. So I can't actually say in my recovery, I started getting glimmers. That's it. I started getting glimmers of joy. And I really believe that was when the wiring was starting to really kick in
Amazing.
because yeah, and then they got more. There was more of them. And then I could actually start feeling really joyful like I had never felt in my whole life, to be honest, like to a whole new level. And yeah, my brain was supporting it.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So,
So,
wow, Felicity, you've covered a lot there. I've been making little notes as we've been speaking on the back of an envelope. So you started
as
by
you do.
talking about catching thoughts and reframing your thinking to more useful, more supportive thinking.
Yes, flip it or
Yeah,
reframe it.
yeah.
Yeah.
You talked about routines, but you talked about the importance of the routines not being boring Okay, they need to be routines that bring us joy, that are a nice distraction. So love that, because we know the brain likes routine, but it also likes novelty. It also likes things
Yeah.
that are interesting. You talked about music and listening to music, and I'm sure for many people that's an important piece, and sometimes we overlook it. Whenever I'm with one of my sisters, we are often listening to music whilst we're playing Scrabble or something. Just enjoy sharing different pieces of music. So love that. And as I say, I'm going to create an MECFS uplifting playlist. And actually, as you were speaking, I also thought it's interesting. Sometimes I listen to music that's kind of deeply moving and a bit
Ah,
a bit
there you go.
melancholic, because
Yes. It's a
sometimes we
portal.
yeah,
It's a portal.
yeah,
It's actually a portal to you to be able to express your feelings because,
yeah,
often a lot of people with these illnesses have stuffed feelings down and have ignored them and actually have challenges in able to accessing those feelings and releasing them.
yeah.
And so music can be a portal for that.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
absolutely put
Yeah.
myself in that category. I have some understanding of why that's the case. And again, let us know in the chat. Can you relate to that? I do find listening to particular pieces of music, sometimes watching certain films, can just bring up a lot of emotion that I haven't been able to express on my own, if you like. You talked about dancing. When you were able to, initially you were swinging in your hammock, which I love that. That's a way of just adapting to your situation. But you started dancing to the music, feeling the joy. And you've just reminded me, I've written down actually on a piece of paper, I need to start going to salsa classes again, because that's something I enjoy doing and haven't done for a while. The next thing you talked
Yeah.
about was breathing and alternate nostril breathing. So do check out that if that's something that helps you. I think I mentioned that one of my
Yeah.
clients found that really helpful. You talked about doing yoga nidras, which are actually guided relaxations. And part of that was using affirmations, like saying phrases to yourself that are helpful. Again, you've reminded me there was a time when that was really important for me, when I was experiencing a lot of fear, to be saying to myself,
Yeah.
actually, I trust in my ability to make decisions that support me. I trust
Check the
in,
reality.
yeah,
Yeah. Are you
yeah,
catastrophizing?
yeah,
Because when you come from your survival brain, you do tend to catastrophize. And getting back to the whole when you talked about the novelty thing, the best thing that fires up your prefrontal cortex, which is your higher functioning self, which shifts you out of survival, is novelty and
yeah,
humor.
yeah.
So the science backs it.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
kind of why, to the degree that you can, to experience novelty. And it might be that if you're stuck in your home for now, there are still ways of doing that. I actually love watching. There was this woman who was traveling the world in her camper van, and I loved watching her little videos, because it just gave you, like you said, a portal into
Yeah.
experiencing through someone else's lens uh, environments that were different. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people with ME, CFS, fibromyalgia, long COVID say that when they go on holiday, they feel a
Mm,
boost in their energy because of the novelty.
yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. You're getting out of that survival
Yeah.
mode and it distracts your monkey mind, all of this.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
stopping the ruminations, the stress loops that go round and round that can so keep you stuck.
Yeah, and there's a
Yeah.
great little video by this Buddhist who talks about the monkey mind, and he gives people a very short little meditation to do, and it's just a way of saying to the monkey mind, do this for a minute, and the monkey mind goes, okay, I can do that, and it keeps
Yeah.
just engages the monkey mind in something other than worry and anxiety. So
Yeah.
you then talked about, if you did an activity, you'd bookend the activity before and after with a yoga nidra as a way of restoring yourself. And as you were speaking, I just thought, actually, my life's pretty busy at the moment, for reasons I won't go into, but you've just reminded me that it's a good thing to just do some of that stuff. I'm going to go to bed a bit earlier and listen to a nice, relaxing, guided relaxation. And you
Yeah.
talked about focusing and visualizing. Then you talked about humor. Do you want to give a shout out, maybe just the first name of that person who gave you a lot of joy and laughter?
Hi, Alan. Hope you're eating a nice, juicy bacon sandwich, my friend. That's a private joke.
Okay, that's good. So big up to Alan. You talked about passion, having a passion, and I think that's so important. You
Purpose and
know,
passion.
yeah, when
Mm,
I had MECFS, I was really into playing the guitar, and what I learned is that I would not pick it up, and then I'd binge on it and maybe play for too long and then exhaust myself. And I realized I needed to learn to just pick it up every day and just play for whatever felt the right amount. Not too much, not too little, you know. So love
yes.
that. So your passion's photography. So I invite you to, if you're watching this, to think about that. What is something you can get passionate about? Or what is the passion, a passion you have that you could find some way of expressing? Because what I find is some people say, oh, I do art, but, setting up a canvas to do oils, it's too time consuming.
Yeah.
I,
Make it simple.
well,
Make it really
exactly,
simple. I
exactly.
don't use a big, huge camera with a big, huge lens and switch out lenses. I don't know how to do any of that. I do it all on my phone and it's simple because again, with photography, if you're going to capture a moment, you know, to actually get the right lenses and everything, quite often the moment's passed.
Yeah,
So you need
yeah,
to make it simple.
yeah.
Just, I really, keeping it simple in so many ways is so important in recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is another important message because, for instance,
Yeah,
with these people who are into their art, I
yeah,
say, well, look, what are your options? And they say, oh, actually, I suppose I could just do a sketch. I could keep some
yeah,
crayon or charcoal near my bed, and just when I feel like it, I'll do a quick sketch. And it's like,
yeah.
and sometimes people get a bit stuck, but I want to do the oils. And this is where having some
Yes,
flexibility and being compassionate towards ourselves and not putting that pressure, like you're saying with your running,
right,
just
exactly.
letting go of that and just finding ways of meeting our needs, of bringing us joy, even if it's not in the same amount. We've got to be flexible in
That,
our approach.
yes, and just keep in mind that in the future you can get back to doing what you love.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just a season.
Yeah, exactly. And that's wanted to come on to that because you talked about listening to your body and reminding yourself, spotting when you're pushing, reminding yourself that it's not forever. So thanks for sharing that. That's important. You also talked about the importance of being intuitive because a lot of the things that you've done were just very intuitive. You weren't having some di- program director coach saying this is what you should be doing. You were intuiting that. And I think that reminding people that you have got this inner wisdom and to be guided by that.
Yeah, and in fact, you know yourself best.
Yeah,
So even if you're doing a program and it's suggesting that you do something and you feel like you should be doing it, but it just doesn't feel right, it might not be for you, that
yeah,
one particular thing your intuition is telling you. So try something different that does feel right.
yeah,
Because if it doesn't feel right, you're not going to be able to build a habit with it.
yeah. And again, that's so important, Felicity, because I've spoken to so many people who've done a program or they've worked with a coach and the coach was saying, oh, go and you've done the program now, go and behave like a normal healthy person, and that didn't feel right for them. They didn't listen
Yes.
to their inner wisdom, and that cost them. And I
Yeah.
actually often say to people, I suspect you were right. It sounds like you were right. So don't ignore your intuition. Listen to it.
That's right. You are the expert on you. And this is something that I so learnt as a nurse and seeing people that were chronically unwell And I just know that to be a fact. Intuitively, you know what's best for you. And to ignore that is at your peril
Yeah,
in this
yeah,
situation.
and you
Yeah,
know, I know that myself. The times when I haven't, when I've ignored my intuition, were to my cost. So
yeah,
thank you for sharing that. And you talked about also that quality of being present. So you gave that example of being on the beach, enjoying the sunrise or the sunset, rather than running past it and not even being aware of it. So that I love that. You talked about journaling. You know, I do think that's, you know, that's something that's become more popular now. Nicole Sachs has popularized journaling, but I think it's really a powerful, you know, thing to have. You know, I know for me, one of the things I talk about with clients is doing your first draft. If when something happens and you feel a bit upset, just getting it out and saying whatever you want to say, no holds barred. And that came up from working with a client where we just said, okay, do your first draft. And she was like, what's my first draft? Just get it out. Whatever, say what,
yeah.
give yourself permission to get it out of your system.
And what you're saying there, something's coming up for me. You know, a lot of us can be perfectionists, and so that can get in the way of just doing something
Yeah,
because you've got to get it right.
yeah,
You don't have to get it right. There's no right or wrong in this. It's
yeah,
just doing it.
yeah. And then finally, you mentioned gratitude. And again, you know, anyone who's looked at gratitude as a practice will understand that there are scientific benefits to practicing gratitude. In my Facebook group, there's a kind of a daily, used to be daily actually, gratitude post, but I think we've stopped doing it daily. But it's something that's just really useful. And even if you do it once a week, there are benefits.
Yeah, and sometimes the gratitude, I think back, if I look back at my old journals when I was really sick, the gratitude would be, oh, I'm so grateful I have a roof over my head.
Yeah,
And it can be just that.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be a gratitude for huge, great things, just
yeah,
any little thing. And it might just be little things when you're really sick.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, Felicity, we've covered a lot there, and you know, this has been very interesting, enjoyable conversation for me, and I'm sure people watching it will get a lot of benefit from it. So, thank you for sharing. We will put your information below the video. Any final little
Okay.
message you want to share for people who might be at the start of their healing and recovery journey or some way into it? Maybe they've experienced this condition for a
Yeah.
long time.
I think a big thing is stay in your own lane, use your intuition, and really, really don't compare. Don't compare with other people's journeys. Um, just do you and be you and do what feels right. And yeah, that's just a good framework to work
Amazing.
by.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So thanks very much, Felicity.
That's all right. It's been my pleasure.